Hi everyone, welcome back to The Future is Female. This is your host, Ruffin. Today, in honor of Valentine's Day, I'm bringing on a special guest, Ali Maggioncalda. She's the founder of Lovewick, a free relationship wellness app that's helping over 300,000 couples stay in love once they've found it. It's inspired by hundreds of interviews with diverse couples and dozens of research papers. Lovewick boasts the internet's largest library of fun couples questions, fresh date ideas, and research inspired relationship tips. Ali studied behavioral science at Stanford and then did grad school research on romantic love and technology at the Royal College of Art in London. She's been featured in outlets like Forbes and Daily Mail, has over 35 million views on TikTok, and she's raised $1 million in pre seed funding led by Corazon Capital, a fund managed by former Match Group, Tinder, and OkCupid executives. I am so excited to share my conversation with Ali, so let's get started. Hi, Ali. Welcome to the podcast. So excited to meet you today. Do you want to start off by sharing just a little bit about who you are and what you are working on?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. I'm really excited to chat. Um, Big picture, my name is Ali Maggioncalda. I am a total romantic and love nerd. That's what I call myself. I've always been fascinated by human behavior and why we do what we do. So I studied human behavioral biology in undergrad at Stanford and then realized, I the dating app space and finding love and staying in love is such a strong problem area and pain point for so many people that in grad school I decided to dedicate a lot of my time to exploring love and technology, and then decided to build something myself because I think there's a real gap between finding a partner using a dating app and then being in such trouble that you seek therapy.
Very cool. And so tell us what you are building and working on now.
Yeah, so my company's called Lovewick. It's a relationship wellness app that helps you make time with your partner quality time. So there's a question card game that's very much like open-ended questions to get to know each other for date nights or pillow talk. And then the second part of the app is really community generated inspiration for things to do in your relationship. So date ideas, sweet gestures to do for each other, things to try in the bedroom. Yeah, just making the most of your time together and making sure that you don't get too complacent in your relationship.
I love that. So tell us how you got started on this. It sounds like you studied some of this in school. Did you start this while you're in school, or did you work and then you started this? Tell us a little bit more.
Yeah, I think my fascination with love has always been there, but I was really after undergrad, like I said, human biology. A lot of my friends went on to be doctors and nurses, and as wonderful as that is, I just realized I was not passionate about like how the kidney worked. I was passionate about like why the brain did what it did. So then I worked for a couple years at a tech startup just to like honestly figure out what I was going to do next. Now that like medical school was kind of off the table. And I realized that like I'm a really creative person, but I haven't really given a lot of space in my life to being creative. And so I started looking at design school, like for grad school, like what kinds of interdisciplinary design programs would be like a master's in design thinking, or like the Stanford D School. They're an interdisciplinary program where like you're getting a master's in some other discipline, but then you do all this cool problem solving together at the D School. So I was like, where can I get a master's in the D School? So I basically Googled best design schools in the world, and the school called the Royal College of Art in London popped up. And it was a really beautiful opportunity. The program's called service design. And they were like, we literally want interdisciplinary people who come from these different worlds and then want to learn like a little bit of a framework for how to use their backgrounds to build products and services that can transform the way we interact with the world. And it didn't require any grad school testing, and I could put together a portfolio pretty quickly. So honestly, that was a big shift in my life. Was like, all right, I'm going to go to the Royal College of Art. I'm going to do service design. And I broke up with my partner. We broke up when I went to grad school. So love and dating became an even more pressing thing on my mind then. And I kind of used my dissertation and projects as a space to explore that topic, but I didn't start Lovewick until after grad school.
During school, were you like doing like what types of research were you doing towards Lovewick? Like what kind of conversations were you having
Yeah.
and how did that lead to you starting Lovewick?
Yeah. Well, so the dissertation was like I had to choose something to write a 10,000 word paper on related to design in some way. And I was like, I started dating like off dating apps for the first time really when I moved to London. So I think I went on 150 first dates in like 3 years. And I
Wow.
got ghosted. I had situationships where you feel like it's love at first sight, and then it's like not at all. I had really beautiful, wonderful, like short-lived kind of situationships too. But having that go on in my personal life, I was like, I really like the only thing I can think of that I want to spend 10,000 words looking at is the landscape of love. So my research there was really looking at the design of dating apps, like the swiping versus liking, this idea of choice paradox, and like if you think you have infinite choices, that actually makes you less satisfied with any option you end up with. Like, is that good for our psychology as a people? But also like the benefits of dating apps where you are exposed to people who you wouldn't naturally come across. We used to meet people through our religious institutions or through schools that we stayed very local for, and now you meet people from different religions, different races, and I think that's a real benefit of them. But so looking at the kind of the pros and cons of the dating app landscape, then what else is there in the love relationship space? And a lot of it is like products and services to outsource your needs to technology, which I found kind of scary. So like virtual reality porn, sex robots, chatbot friends, like I'm not saying they're all bad, but I was just kind of like, whoa, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of technology beyond the match being used to like help people make it work. And if anything, it looks like we're using technology to like outsource needs that we would have hoped to get from a human to now this like disembodied machine. Um, so yeah, did a lot of research, like interviews, reading tons of journal articles, reading a bunch of papers, watching a bunch of documentaries to kind of like synthesize a viewpoint on that. And then for my final project, which was a group project, we interviewed over, I would like now in my life, I've interviewed well over 100 people and couples, but probably at that time, like 50. And we specifically tried to look at different personas of couples. So intercultural couples, like what kind of strengths and like problem areas are they struggling with? Age gap couples, couples who are deciding not to have children, couples who had children really early. Like, are there kind of universal relationship issues or needs, or are they really, really different for all these different groups? And we found that like overarchingly, there are very universal needs across all these different demographics.
Very interesting. Can you share some of those universal needs?
Yeah. I think the most clear framework it bubbled down to for me, there's this theory called the triangular theory of love. Robert Sternberg, I think was his name, a Yale psychologist. Um, and it was emotional intimacy, commitment, and passion. And I was like, well, what do those things really mean? And commitment used to mean a ring, but that's not necessarily what it is anymore. So through all the interviews, kind of like restructured that as wanting to feel understood, wanting to feel appreciated, and wanting to feel excited. So I think like across all relationships, you want to feel like your partner knows you and understands where you're coming from. You want to feel like they appreciate you and prioritize you relative to the other things they have in their life. And you want to feel excited, whether that is through sex or even not sexual at all. Are we doing things that make me feel like I'm growing and self-expanding in some way? So that kind of became the anchor of Lovewick, honestly, is like, how can I help couples feel more understood, feel more appreciated, feel more excited?
From there, like what was your first version of Lovewick? Like you graduated, you had all this amazing research, like you said,
Yeah,
you had a great anchor. What was like first steps? Who were like your first couples that you were helping?
totally. Love this question. So out of grad school, I didn't have any money other than my own savings to explore. And I did apply to a couple like accelerators and nobody even gave me interviews, which I was really disappointed by, honestly, because I was like, people say that they want diverse perspectives and like non-traditional founders, and but then they have someone who like has a very clear perspective, has spent the last 2 years thinking about this problem, but because I don't code myself, I'm chopped liver. That's what it felt like, at least. So I was like, all right, how can I start building traction without sinking all my money into building a native mobile app, when like that might not be the answer. That's not always the answer. So actually the first iteration of the product was a Facebook Messenger bot, where like you would ping the Facebook Messenger bot and it would show you a couple like options for types of questions. So like, do you want to pull from the sex and affection deck or the personality and habits deck? And then it would send you a question. And then I'd kind of watch and be like, all right, are people ping, like after they do it the first time, do they come back and do it more? What would be a layer on top of that where I could fake some AI of like, okay, you just talked about like how your favorite way to play as a kid was I don't listen to the conversations, obviously. They don't type their answers. They have the conversation offline. But like they talked about that question and they sought another one. So I'd be like, oh, they liked that topic of childhood games. Let me recommend a date of building a fort in the living room together and like reconnecting with your inner children. And so I just started kind of playing with like, how could I fake my way to what the pain points that the product would solve, and see if people who were not my friends continued to use it without me, doing a whole lot and spending a whole lot.
Very cool. And so that was obviously something you could just set up yourself. Did you like run any paid ads to get the first people on there? Like what was your strategy
Yeah,
there?
ran a couple paid ad. I think I spent like $150 or something, but like I'm lucky enough also to have friends who work at Meta and they had some free like they give credits for things. So honestly, I don't think it cost me much. And I did have a grad student, like a CS grad student, help me with the messenger bot part of it because I didn't code that myself. Yeah.
Very, very cool. And then from there, where did you take things?
Yeah. Well, from there, then I leveled up to like a web. It wasn't like an official web app, but like a really, really mobile friendly web page that people had more configuration on. Like they could draw from a deck and then like skip to the next card, mark it as played. So I had just like a lot more follow up of like what the behaviors were. And my uncle helped me build that, which was really, really nice. So again, didn't cost very much. But I think these experiments were like making sure that I had the confidence to sink more money into this, because if I wasn't seeing the kind of engagement, like if I felt like pulling teeth to get people to do these things, then probably I'm not on the right direction, headed in the right direction. But seeing that like on a very small scale, this was valuable enough to people to like use this kind of janky web version of it, gave me a lot of hope that, like I'm going to take a chance on myself and like build a first version of this, because I'm pretty confident that there are people who would find it valuable and who would use it.
Amazing. And so at this point, you're still bootstrapping, paying yourself, or just using your savings.
Yeah.
And then at what point were you like, okay, it's time to maybe raise some money, or did you look into other accelerator programs?
I reapplied to the accelerator programs even with that, and was again didn't get any interviews. Like was kind of again, I was like, what the heck? But so at that point, I feel very, very lucky that my family is really supportive, like not financially, but they were like, my dad especially was like, Allie, you have something here. Like, if you don't build it, somebody else will. And before you go find a job working for somebody else doing something like this, like, I think this is worth taking a bet on. So, as a solo founder, especially, it's like really hard to, it can feel very lonely. And so, having someone that I respect, like my dad, tell me, like, no, there's something here and you should chase it, then got me to the point where, like, I was like, I'm going to build it and I'm going to have undeniable traction where then people can't tell me that this is not something worthwhile. And so I actually didn't raise money until after having a product that was like live in the app store and had real users, which
Wow.
I don't recommend for everybody, but like I was really lucky that I had savings enough to like get it to that point. Um,
Can you
but yeah.
share what you think the benefits are of taking that route, and maybe also what were like some of the hardships of taking that route?
Yeah. Yeah. I think the benefits one benefit for me was like the speed at which I could go. Um, a lot of the like programs, understandably, like want a really strong team, and team means you must have some like a technical co-founder. And so I feel like for early founders, everyone's like hunting. The ideas person is like hunting for the complementary technical co-founder. And I gave it, a couple months of like trying to meet friends of friends, but I was just kind of like, this is slowing me down because I already know what I have a clear idea of what I want to build. And um it's nothing that is like really complicated. Like this is not a product that's going to sink or swim based on some like really novel AI. Like AI make it significantly better in the future? Yes. But I was like, this kind of, to me at this stage of what the thought I've put in, the risks I've or the ways in which I feel like I've de-risked this, like I just want to go straight to building. So then I got a lot of referrals for contractors to work with, and I ended up using or like working with a contractor engineer to get the thing built. And actually, 2.5 years later, we still work together, which is like really amazing. I adore him, and he's wonderful. But he's in Berlin, and like it was supposed to just kind of be a short-term engagement to get the thing built. So yeah, a pro was like moving fast and not feeling like I had to wait to build. Um, Con, definitely like just the loneliness and weight of it. One of my friends joked, I texted a group of friends for like feedback every now and again, and someone relabeled the group chat like Allie's brain trust, which I really loved because it was kind of like I had to makeshift co-founders from my friends and my family members who had competencies in these areas. Um, and so it's really nice to know that all these people are like really supportive of you, but in the day-to-day minutia it can feel quite lonely, and you don't always want to be bugging people for a second opinion on things.
Yeah.
But I would also say probably I ended up giving up way less of the company at an early stage because I de-risked so much of it first before getting those early checks. So pros and cons, wouldn't recommend it for everybody, but for me it kind of felt like a necessity because I wasn't getting into the kinds of programs that I wanted to by myself.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for sharing that. So I know you've gotten amazing traction since then. Can you tell us how you've converted so many initial customers?
Yeah. Yeah, well, so for the Facebook Messenger bot and the web app kind of thing, I did the paid ads to at least get strangers in the door. Once I built the app, I was like, it's a free product. I can't pay to acquire a bunch of users. And so on a very early level, actually, for the first couple users, I think was through me replying to Reddit posts. Like I would go into Reddit threads that were about like long distance relationships or relationship advice or relationship problems. And I wouldn't be like overtly selling or like pushing Lovewick on people. But you'd see people post, hey, I'm in a long distance relationship, and I feel like sometimes after we've been texting all day, there's like not that much to talk about at night. Like it's not that we run out of things to talk about, but like we just want some inspiration to make our conversations more fun or interesting or less about errand talk and like the, again, little things about the day. And so I was like, well, I actually made this free question card game and it's available in the App Store and iOS. And like, I would love you to be one of the first people to try it and like give me feedback. Like it was a very earnest ask, but also it was replying to a need that they really fundamentally had and was asking the community for help with. So I would say I got like my first like 50 or so users through like engagements on Reddit. And then we launched around like the beginning of late 2020, early 2021 for context. And I'm the oldest of, I think, 9 grandkids on my dad's side and 5 on my mom's side. And so like I always felt like super old relative to all my cousins. They're all like Snapchat and TikTok and all this kind of stuff. And I was just like, oh my God, I'm too old for that. I don't even have a Twitter. Like I'm not savvy in that world. But then during the pandemic, I feel like a lot of people who weren't usually turn to TikTok as just a source of entertainment and camaraderie and like, what is going on here? And so I kind of realized, hey, if the content is interesting enough, it's like a free 10 to 15-second ad. Like they will push it out to eyeballs if it's something that's interesting enough. And it made me really nervous, but it was January of 2021. Valentine's Day was coming up the next month. And I was like, if I were to try to experiment on TikTok, now would be the time of like just coming up with date ideas or questions to ask your partner, like taking features of the app, but converting it into stuff that I could put on TikTok that again wouldn't be overly salesy, but would have the logo in the corner or would be a screenshot from the app. And I was hoping that that would drive some people to go and check it out. It was really embarrassing. Like I was like, I'm so cringe. I will not tell any of my friends about this. Like it's actually more comfortable having strangers see you do these kinds of things than like people you know. Um, so yeah, I kind of committed to myself, like I will post every other day for a month and just see what happens and not be too attached to the outcome. And I'll try lots of different things and just see if anything sticks. And I think like around my fifth video, I got 20,000 views and I was like, oh, whoa, that's exciting. And maybe that was like 100 downloads or something. And I was like, that's amazing. Like I would have paid $100 or more to like get those people to use the app. And then I think like maybe my 12th or something got 1 million views. And that's when it was just kind of like, whoa, we are off to the races. This is exciting. And so TikTok really became my main user acquisition strategy for, I mean, until now even. And it's me. So I don't have like the ability to be posting multiple times a day because I also have to improve the app and build the company. But at least for now, it feels like a really awesome tool to like organically reach people, but also to get really good product feedback. Like people comment, oh, I tried it, but we kind of forgot about it. And like, it would be great if you would set up notifications where you can push us a question every so often, or, things like that. And you're like, oh, brilliant. Of course. Like I should have thought about that. And then the other thing is like, it keeps me on the pulse of like what people are struggling with in relationships, because there's a lot of like couples trends and couples pranks, which I think a lot of them are not very kind, but you're like, what are the kinds of things that people are resonating with enough for then it to go viral? And then you kind of can piggyback off that and be like, we have stuff that can help you with this thing. Yeah, long story short, TikTok was how I acquired a lot of my early users and still is.
Amazing. I also create content on TikTok, so I understand the feeling of being like, this is so cringe, but
Oh,
it opens so many opportunities, and it's so cool to see people like you like actually converting customers for your business.
thank you.
Um,
It's changed everything for me. Yeah.
that's incredible. Few follow-up questions. Can you share how many customers you have today and what percent or estimated percent comes from the platform? And then also, you mentioned you're obviously extremely busy. Like, what do you manage all of your content creation still today, or do you have help there? And like, how do you keep up the cadence? Because it's definitely, you have to be on the platform, be relevant, be
Yeah.
watching what else is happening, to your point.
Yeah. So overall, we have over 300,000 registered users, which is amazing. Some of those people are paired with their partner, so it doesn't necessarily mean there's 300,000 relationships, but a lot of people actually join and are not paired. Either they're in like a young enough relationship that they don't feel comfortable maybe inviting their partner to use it yet, or they're like trying to, see what the value is before taking that on. Other people, they just know their partner is not a phone person, or is someone who would rather them be the planner and the organizer, which I totally respect. But it works the best obviously if both people are in it, because you can collaboratively add ideas and draw questions and leave notes and add picture memories. And so definitely pairing is the best. So anyways, around 300,000 registered users. I would say 90% of them came from TikTok, maybe more than 90%.
Wow.
It very much like the growth spikes with the days that my TikToks spike. That said, it's not the only way that people learn about Lovewick. Like I think once you're a user, then you do talk about it. Thank goodness. Like you need that word of mouth. So like if you're having drinks with your girlfriends and someone's talking about something they're going through in your relationship, and you're like, oh well, this app that I just found on TikTok, super random, but like it has questions for before you move in together, so maybe that would like relieve some anxiety about like moving in with your partner for the first time. So I think it can naturally become a part of conversations, but TikTok is the way that the eyeballs first find us for the most part. And then your question about like, do I make all the content for TikTok? Yes, I do. And it takes a lot out of me, to be honest, but it also, I'm proud of the content that I put out. It won't be scalable for me forever to be the person doing this, but for now, I feel like it keeps me very close to my users. And I do feel like TikTok is one of those platforms where you build trust with a person, even if it's a disembodied person like the Duolingo owl. Like there is some kind of signal in your brain of like, oh, I've seen this person before, I trust this person, like I'll keep watching. I feel like a lot of times if it's a person you've never seen before, or you kept switching the person associated with the account, it would be a little bit more challenging. So that's just kind of the strategy I have for now. And I do have a growth person on the team, which is great, and she helps out with reposting the TikToks to all these other different channels, like reposting as reels, reposting on Twitter where it makes sense, and then also some Instagram content. But like the video stuff is still very much on my plate. Yeah.
Wow. Very, very smart, and totally agree. It's so true that people on TikTok want to follow people, and they understand now who's behind Lovewick, and I think that
Yeah.
goes so far. So very, very smart.
Thank you.
So then can you share more about your recent fundraise? How much you raised, like what stage that was at, anything you can share on like also, what you think really sold your investors and you and your team, as well as who your investors are.
Yeah. So I raised fall of 2021, announced it on Valentine's Day of last year because I was like, oh, that's
Love
good
that.
timing. And there was still some checks trickling in. So yeah, I would say it's been around a year, a little bit more than a year with the pre-seed funding. Um, and I raised because it is a free product, and that's always been kind of the plan. I mean, obviously we'll have to make money someday, but I was like very much still in the needs finding stage of like, what do people need and want and use and habitually find valuable? And I think that there are creative ways to make money without charging a subscription. So that's that's where I'm at, is like I think there will be ways for me to offer value where the core product will be free or at least very, very affordable. But I'm not really at that stage of the company right now. I'm at the needs finding stage. So yeah, I wanted to raise to kind of show that I could build something that solves a big enough problem. Like this isn't just for people whose relationships are on the brink of divorce and they're trying to save it. Like actually the opposite. This is about being mindful and intentional in your relationship before it even gets to that point. I also wanted to build out my team a little bit. Like it was just me and this contractor for, a year and a half, I think. And so we were moving more slowly than we necessarily could have. Now being able to work with like part-time product designers and a front end dev and things like that. And I kind of set very clear goals for like a year from now. I want to have grown 100,000 users. I want to have weekly active usage. I want to burn less than this amount of money, and I want the retention to be, this month over month. And I got like, I had a lot of meetings, and it was not looking good for a bit because a lot of the investors, especially older men, just like didn't see this as something that men would ever use. They were like, this seems like something that like women would use, but like my marriage is fine. Like, why would I need to use this? And I was like, oh, I would love to talk to your wife. Like, does your wife think your relationship is fine? Like, when's the last time you planned a date night? Generationally, like our expectations of relationships are so much different than our parents and especially our grandparents' generations. Um, so I got super, super lucky to get an introduction to Sam Yagan, who was the founder or a co-founder of OkCupid, and then was the CEO of Match.com, and then he was on the board of Grindr, and now he's a managing partner of a fund called Corazon Capital. So I honestly went into the call just wanting advice because I was like, this guy is a dating space veteran. Like I would just be curious to know what he thinks. And the call went really well. It was super fun and the banter was good. And at the end of the call, he was like, "So do you want advice or are you also wanting money?" And at that time, I really didn't know that he had a fund. I just was like, based on his pedigree of all these things he's done, he would give great advice. And I was like, well, if you have a fund, like I am fundraising, and that would be really epic. And he's like, cool, like let me set you up with somebody else and like we'll continue this conversation. Once Corazon was in, it completely changed the rest of the fundraise. Like it's getting to that first yes is really hard. And this whole thing about conviction, like nobody wants to put their necks out there first. And so for him and Corazon to put their necks out there, if you will, and be someone who is trusted in the love and relationship space, I think just really greased the wheels for other people. And also they introduced me to other firms like Lead Out Capital was my other firm. Allie is the managing partner there. She's wonderful and she just got it. And so it was really nice to feel like after so many conversations where I was trying to convince someone to get it, these two people got it. And then there were a bunch of angels who also got it. And I was like, okay, this feels right. This feels like, I can do this. If it's a very hard battle to win when you're pitching something that at their core, the person doesn't feel the pain point themselves or doesn't believe that it's really a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. That's so
Thank
cool.
you.
And I imagine his team will be amazing in terms of being a strategic advisor with all of their background and experience.
Yeah.
And thank you for being so transparent about, your difficulty getting into accelerators and also the fundraise, because, I imagine a ton of people can relate to that.
That's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping that your audience is a lot of other female founders or women who might someday be female founders. And just like, even when it looks like it was really easy and brushstroked, like it is never that way I don't think for anybody, but I don't think especially for women, at least right now. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So it sounds like you've built out the team a little bit more with that funding. Who is on the team now?
Honestly, I haven't built it out that much.
Oh,
Like I was like the money can go further in still continuing to test assumptions, and there are so many talented part-time freelancer contractor folks, um, both in the United States and outside of the United States, that still we're a team of 4 and only one full-time salaried employee other than myself. And I think that's really going to be at the next stage of funding too, because I wanted the money to go as long as it could. And I found at least that committing an entire salaried role to something that like might change just felt a little too risky to me. Yeah.
very smart. As we start to wrap things up,
Yeah.
1, where can people sign up? And 2, something exciting that's coming up for you and Lovewick in the next
Yeah.
year.
Yeah. So Lovewick is on iOS and Android. It's public in the United States. So if you're in the US, like just go to the App Store, please, and download it and try it. And if you have any feedback, slide into my DMs or @withlovewick is the handle for Instagram and TikTok. Or email support@lovewick.com because I read it every day and I get feedback every day and I really love it. So please check us out. If you're in another country, there are opportunities to beta test earlier versions of things. So still reach out at support@lovewick.com and I can send you an early invite. And then exciting things coming up. I am planning to raise seed this year, so that is exciting. I hit all of the targets I set out for the pre-seed to seed kind of stage of the company. Doesn't mean that it's going to be easy, but I feel confident going in that I did the things I said I was going to do, which feels good. And then this is a little feature thing that I'm excited about, but right now there's this library of like date ideas that are crowdsourced from the community, and then I write some myself. And right now there's no way to like share an individual idea with somebody who's not on the app. So for example, somebody submitted the other day making a giant heart-shaped cookie for Valentine's Day and then writing like "that ass dough" or like some kind of dough pun, which is just so cute. And I'm like, yeah, you should be able, like you are able to send a TikTok or something else, like you should be able to send that to somebody who's not on the app so that they could see it. And hopefully like that will lead them to become a user and want to check it out. So like more product-led growth things are what I'm working on right now. And I'm excited for that to launch.
So fun. Amazing. And I'll make sure to link, obviously, all the links to sign up so people
That
can
would be
easily
great.
find that. And
Cool.
then, final question that I love to end on. Can you share a female founder, investor, or leader that inspires you and a little bit about why?
Yeah. The one that comes to mind, the person that comes to mind is Ariella Safira. She's the founder of a company called Real. And I knew her back at Stanford in undergrad and thought she was, a really impressive, kind, but like go-getter person. And to see that translate, I think she just closed or last year closed their Series B. Um, on Real, and it's solving such a necessary pain point around getting people access to mental health care before a point of crisis, and also not just assuming that like um teletherapy is the answer, as in like one-to-one therapy is still not going to be affordable enough for like many people to have access to healthcare. So they've kind of packaged it up in pathways that are like kind of podcast-esque. That's my understanding of it, where you can go at your own pace and, you can have a therapist who has all this knowledge, but be able to share it with like way more people, but still in a structured and supportive way. So yeah, just seeing like the journey of her company as a solo founder who literally came from like the same place that I did in terms of undergrad, has been really inspiring. And yeah, she's working on important things.
I've followed her story as well and love the work she is doing. So
Yeah.
important. Well, thank you so much for joining. It was so nice to meet you, and I'm so
Thank you for
excited
having
to
me.
sign up for Lovewick and follow
Please.
what you do next.
Yes, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Future is Female podcast. If you're a fan of the show, make sure to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. See you next time.